What's up, everybody? Take His Whistle back again with another NFL episode. Today, we've got some catching up to do on the Thanksgiving games. We've got some drama, maybe over on the Buffalo Bills side. And then, of course, we've got a little more, so just stay tuned, and we'll be back in a couple seconds.
Steps into it, pass is caught! Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Play clock at 5. Pass intercepted.
Back today, so I got time to be tripping and writing no love song. Yeah, writing no love song. We all experience love loss.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Take His Whistle podcast. I am one of your hosts, Josh, and as always, I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Parker.
What is up? What's up? What's up?
And as always, normally around this time of the week, we are back with another NFL episode. So, Parker, let's jump right into it. Parker, we had some very good Thanksgiving games. Now, they weren't very close, except for one, but nonetheless, still very good, and it's always awesome to watch football on Thanksgiving.
Yeah. The one close one you're talking about is the Packers and the Lions, and that is a game in Detroit. Not a lot of people thought that the Packers had any shot of winning that game, right? The Lions have proven to be one of the best teams in the NFL altogether, and the Packers come in and they put up a huge first quarter, which ultimately led them to the win.
It must suck to be the Lions because they are genuinely, they might be cursed on Thanksgiving. They cannot win on Thanksgiving. It's ridiculous.
The Lions have had a really good season, and I think that they're going to end up getting a really good seed in the playoffs, but things like this just make me think that, and not to say all teams don't go through the same thing, but just it makes me feel like the Lions just aren't there just yet. They need a couple more years. They keep the same pieces, some of the main pieces, but just a few more years before we can actually start saying the Lions are a legit Super Bowl contender. But, this alone, even Goff is had a great game. He had 332 yards, 2 touchdowns. Obviously, St. Brown is just continuously doing his thing. 9 catches, 95 yards. Just good things. Just they couldn't rebound from that first quarter, that huge first quarter that saw Jordan Love on the game throw 3 touchdowns. Christian Watson has been absolutely insane every single week, really, since he's came back from injury. Christian Watson is really coming into his self. And he's one of my favorite players to watch.
It seemed like a real battle of defense in that game because both QBs, as you said, both did amazing things. And it kind of just seems like, one defense was able to hold a little better. And, I think maybe possession of the ball could have swayed towards the Packers, towards the end of the game. They just so happened to have the ball, and it was pretty much their own destiny from that point. So, but
Yeah. I know our buddy, if I'm not mistaken, he put a bet on the Lions kicker this past weekend, and he missed the extra point on their first touchdown, and then they went for it. The next 2 times the Lions scores, they went for 2 instead of even kicking an extra point. So I'm pretty sure he lost money on that, if I'm not mistaken. So you want to talk about bad beats? That's your main one of the week, I'd say.
Yeah, I had the Lions kicker in fantasy this past week, and let me just say that 0 hurt.
Did he give you a 0 or was it negative?
He gave me a 0.
A 0. Yeah. Like I said, I just think things like this, you have the whole spotlight on you. Thanksgiving game at home. You had Jack Harlow there, regardless if it was a Make-A-Wish type of concert. Yeah, he just didn't care at all. But, you had the whole world watching you, and you just go out and struggle from the first kickoff to the last one. But, I could be wrong. I've been wrong multiple times before. But just from what I see, just not there yet for the Lions.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're 1 or 2 steps away, but they are very close, right on the brink. The other two games, however, Parker, very not close. Very just very, very clear winners in those games. Interesting matchups for sure, but yeah, just blowouts for one team. And Dak having another great game. Seemingly coming out of nowhere in this mid to second half of the season. He's performing very well. Oh, he's performing very well recently, and putting up MVP numbers week by week. I mean, 331 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. That's and 4 touchdowns thrown to 4 different guys. So
Here's my thing on Dak. My thing on Dak is he puts up these crazy numbers. But look who they're playing, man. I mean, the Panthers and the Giants, and then obviously the Commanders. Before that, yeah, you've had a good game against the Eagles, but he also kind of single-handedly lost them the game. If I'm not mistaken, if I recall correctly, there was multiple mistakes from Dak in that fourth quarter that cost them the game over the Eagles. And then he puts up crazy numbers every week, but against some of the bottom feeders in the league. So again, I know a few Cowboys fans, and I'll tell them this, that just Dak isn't the answer. I'll tell them straight up just to see what they say on it, and they think I'm dead wrong. They say I'm dead wrong, that he is the answer. He is the one that is going to lead them to the Super Bowl, win them a Super Bowl, and they don't think of going any other direction.
He's been there for what? 6 years now, maybe longer.
Something like that, yeah.
And he hasn't really done anything yet. So I get your point.
No, he hasn't done anything except for choke in the fourth quarter. I mean, he is a notorious choker, and if you don't think so, I could call off like 3 or 4 different instances in big time games where he has blown it in the fourth quarter.
All right. So, moving on, before we get to some drama that came up recently this past week, I just want to say, if you are a Patriots or Giants fan and you had to watch that game this past weekend, I am so sorry for you, because that game was horrible. And I mean horrible. Not only was it like the lowest scoring game of the week of the season, I'm pretty sure, only 10-7, Giants win 10-7, but Mac Jones, horrible. Like, I don't even know how the guy's a starter. Horrible. Gets replaced. The backup comes in, also does horrible. And it's funny because the Giants they have won 2 in a row with Tommy DeVito as their quarterback, and I don't know. That game was just horrible. I don't really have much to say about that game, just besides it was just horrible, and that the Patriots need to find out who they're going to draft at QB in this upcoming draft, because the guy they have right now ain't it.
Strange to me, man. I mean, didn't Mac Jones make a Pro Bowl his first year?
He made the Pro Bowl his rookie year.
Yeah, I mean, how and like what had happened? Is it pass coverage? He doesn't have any time and he's just rushing it? Like,
he just makes poor decision making. He just has super poor decision making. Like, if you watch him play, he'll throw it into double coverage over and over again. Like, he'll have a possession where he'll throw it into double coverage, it'll be picked off, and then the very next possession, it's like he didn't learn anything, and he'll just do it again. It's just horrible decision making. He's not a good QB. He's not a starter. He shouldn't be starting. Just a huge draft bust by the Patriots, who were on a crazy streak of draft busts, by the way.
I said it even last year. I think that because I think Mac Jones got hurt last year, and then Bailey Zapp came in for a few games. I said that the Patriots should have stayed with Zapp. He just seems like the better quarterback. But now, obviously, not only college resume, but just NFL, the small sample size in the NFL, you would tend to go to Mac Jones over Bailey Zapp. But I think in this position where the Patriots are at right now, sitting at 2 wins on the year, you give the keys to Bailey Zapp and you tell him to go have fun. You just go out there, play your own game. Don't worry about the turnovers. Don't worry about whatever it may be. I think that they should have done it last year, and I'm still sticking with it. Bailey Zapp needs to be the quarterback of this team. He needs to be the quarterback. And I'm not saying going into next year, but if he does impress you, for whatever reason, you let him go out there and just throw the football around. If he does impress you, you might be able to rock with him for a year. See what he does for an entire year as a starter. Then from there, make another decision. But I'm with you, Josh, as far as they do need to be looking quarterback in this draft, for sure. But it also falls back, which I did see a few articles. I want to get your take on it because I think it's pretty outlandish in my opinion. Some people are saying Belichick could be on the hot seat. Now, we've always thought of him as this great coach, but as soon as Tom Brady left, which I know that's a huge piece. That's something you can't necessarily rebound for overnight and over a year. But since Brady has left, the team has been awful. The franchise has been awful. Do you think Belichick could be seen his way out here in the next couple of years?
So before this year, the Patriots have typically had a top defense in the NFL. Now they have always had a great defense, except for this year. They've always had a great defense. I don't know what side of the ball Belichick specializes in, but I'm pretty sure it's defense if I'm not mistaken. So I think that personally, just that fact alone says a lot about his coaching specifically. Now, if you're asking me, as far as Tom Brady goes, Tom Brady's the greatest of all time in the NFL. And when you have a quarterback like Brady on your team, I don't think it matters who his coach is, which we kind of saw when he went to Tampa Bay and won a chip immediately.
Right.
I don't think it really matters with the quarterback like that. And I think Belichick is good. He's a great coach for what he does coach. The Patriots are always decent. They've never been this bad. They've never been 2-win bad before in our lifetime. And he's only been their coach in our lifetime. So what he's done for that franchise, he's really turned it around. Granted, they took a shot on a sixth round quarterback and it paid off tremendously. But at the same time, it's like your argument with Stoops. What he's done for the program / franchise is uncomparable. Nobody compares to it. But at the same time, last season was unacceptable for their standards. This season is far unacceptable for their standards. But what I find myself asking, Parker, is it really his fault? Or is it the QB that he's forced to send out there every Sunday who can't throw a ball without forgetting what team he's playing on? So I struggle to find reasons in my own head to blame Belichick, and I find more reasons to blame the people on his team rather than him himself. But at the same time, as the head coach, you have to take all of that burden and that punishment, and you have to you're the coach. At the end of the day, you're the head coach. And if you can't figure out anything to fix it, or if you can't figure out even something small, then maybe your time's up. Maybe it's time to go.
So if for whatever reason, let's just say that the Patriots got Caleb Williams in the draft, right? Caleb Williams is their new guy. 2 years down the line, it's his sophomore, maybe his junior year in the NFL, and it's still, you're not seeing any signs of improvement. In that case, do you think that it is time for them to move on for I hate to say it, a more in-date coach?
Potentially. I mean, at the end of the day, it's hypotheticals because we don't know
Yeah.
how
Oh
good
yeah.
we don't know how good Caleb Williams is going to be in the league. We don't know how good Penix is going to be. We don't know how good Jaden Daniels is going to be. Any of the other first round quarterbacks, Bo Nix, you know what I mean? Caleb or Drake May, whoever they get. Because I'm gonna sit here and say they should take a quarterback. If they don't take a quarterback, then they might be they honestly, they're. Something's wrong. Something's going on in that franchise if they don't take a quarterback, especially in this year's draft. I mean, it's just there's so much talent in this year's draft. And in my head, if they were to draft a guy like Caleb Williams and 2 years down the line, we would probably assume that they'd build around Caleb Williams after his rookie year, or even in his rookie year. Like, you know what I mean? Like, in this year's draft, if they took a Caleb Williams, a Drake May, you'd assume they'd then go and take a wide receiver potentially in the later rounds. Or next year, maybe take a top-tier receiver next year. Or, or free agency. Get a receiver in free agency. Because that offense is horrendous. Everything about that offense is horrendous. Quarterback play is lackluster. Receiver play is lackluster. Tight end play, which the Patriots have had phenomenal tight end play for years in our lifetime. And they have lackluster tight end play, lackluster O-line play. Just that whole offense just needs to be built up. And it starts with quarterback, obviously. But you need to build around that. You need to build around that quarterback, whether it's a rookie, a free agent guy, or honestly, even Mac Jones, because in my opinion, they haven't done a good job building around Mac Jones. He doesn't have great targets, and he doesn't have a great O-line either. So, they got to be better at building, because what they've done in the recent drafts with taking these risky, like, potential high ceiling guys, like Cole Strange, who is okay, but he's not a phenomenal offensive lineman. Like, nobody, I mean, I'm sure that's probably the first time you've heard his name since maybe the draft that he got taken in. So, it's a rough spot with that team because they just have so many holes on the offense that they need to fill that they can't fill in one season. So, if they were to take a quarterback in this year's draft, then they almost are forced to immediately build around that rookie, especially if they want to keep Belichick or if they want to have a good season again.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything. To me, it seems like they took this formula that they used with Brady, that with someone like Brady, you don't have to have these elite receivers, these elite offensive weapons, really an elite offensive line at the end of the day. But if you have a strong foundation on your defense and you just coach your guys right, you run the right routes, it's going to work. And I feel like that's what they tried to do with Mac Jones or Bailey Zapp. And they are realizing that these guys are not Tom Brady. Tom Brady is the GOAT for a reason. He is the greatest of all time for a reason. It's not because he was in some great system. And like you even said, we saw it in Tampa as well. It's not because the Patriots system was phenomenal, which it did have something to do with it, yes, but it was just Tom Brady himself is a game changer. He is a franchise changer. So, I mean,
There's also a difference in the quarterbacks too, though. Like, nobody's gonna work as hard as Tom Brady did. Like, nobody's gonna have that, like, well, I'm sure many players have the will to win like Brady, but we're definitely not seeing that in Mac Jones. We're definitely not seeing that in any of the other Patriots. So it's just like, there's a huge difference there.
And you can kind of tell. I mean, if you watch Mac Jones play, he has a very similar play style to Tom Brady. Like you can kind of now. When I say that, I don't mean it as in they are the same player, because they are far from it. But as far as just intangibles go, very similar play styles. Do you agree with me?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when Mac Jones was drafted, many people were like, "Oh shit, like this is just Brady." Like,
Tom Brady,
a QB that's not really in shape. He can't really run the ball.
Not athletic.
An okay arm as far as the draft goes. Everything leading up to the draft just had Mac Jones as Tom Brady. So, I mean, build-wise, not play-wise, because he's
right.
Yeah, nowhere close. But
And
I 100% get what you're saying though.
I think that they just tried to recreate the magic with Brady and think that it was going to work. It's obviously not working. My opinion, Bailey Zapp needs to take the keys over in New England, at least for the end of the year. Mac Jones shouldn't see the field again unless there is an injury.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So, one of the guys from one of our colleges, Parker, found himself a win this weekend. Granted, it was over the worst team in the NFL, but had himself an okay game. Will Levis, 18 for 28, 185 yards, no touchdowns, but no picks either. Did enough. It looks like he did enough. Did enough to win them the game. They won 17-10 against the Carolina Panthers. I don't know if you watched the game. I didn't, but it seems like he did enough to get them the win. And I mean, that's definitely a good sign. That's his second win, I think, as the starter. So, out of how many games has he started? 3 or 4?
5, I believe.
5? Oh, 5.
I think he came in the Falcons game. Give me 1 second. I do not know for a fact, though.
You might be right. I think you're right.
Yeah, he came in on the Falcons, lost to the Steelers, Bucks, and Jags, and then beat the Panthers.
So he's 2-3 as a starter, but he's had to play some pretty good defenses out there. So, but I will say it doesn't get any harder. It looks like so, or it doesn't get any easier. I mean, so.
Right. They got it's such a young conference. They have so many young teams in their division. I should say not conference, their division. That is just up on the uprise. I mean, obviously, Houston, Jacksonville, both of those teams are extremely good, and they are going to be good for years to come. And then obviously the Colts, they don't have Anthony.
They're down right now, but with AR, they could have been great.
Yeah, so they have some challenges. I mean, that's one of the youngest divisions in football, and with Levis, obviously he is a Kentucky boy. I do have a soft spot for him, just being a Kentucky boy. But as far as is he a long-term answer for Tennessee? Is he a short? Let me say he's a short-term. He's a short-term quarterback that potentially could be a long-term quarterback, because he does struggle. If you watch him play, he does still have some of those very similar things that we saw at Kentucky. He is afraid to run the ball, or afraid to throw the ball sometimes, which causes him to kind of scramble a little too much. His decision making, like we just talked about with Mac Jones, could be iffy, thrown into double, triple coverage. At times he doesn't need to. And also another thing that not a lot of people really see that I pay attention to is spreading the ball out. He has his favorite target, which is DeAndre Hopkins. And DeAndre Hopkins is a top 15, top 20 receiver. So, I mean, I get that. I get it. But...
And he demands the ball, too. Like, if he's not getting passed to enough, like, he makes it known.
Yeah, he does. But at the same time, we see at times other receivers that are just wide open or on one-on-one coverage that Levis is not finding him, and instead he's throwing to Hopkins that teams know that he's going to go to Hopkins, so they are double, triple covering Hopkins, which causes interceptions, drop balls, overthrown balls. So I am curious to see, which they're going to let Levis ride out the rest of the year. This year they're probably already looking to the off season. I'm curious to see what he comes out looking like next year. because I don't think Tannehill would be the starter again next year. I would hope not.
He actually a few weeks ago, honestly, I'm pretty after Levis's first start, I'm pretty sure he actually asked for his release, but they didn't grant it.
They didn't grant it.
Yeah.
Okay, which I don't know. He might be a free agent anyways. Like after this year, his contract might be up. So regardless, I doubt Tannehill is probably even on the team next year. Unless something crazy happens and a player falls in the draft, I don't see them taking a quarterback. I think Will Levis has the start for at least next year, and that's when it's gonna show a lot. You got a whole offseason to really get with the boys, get the offense under control, run it how you want to run it, and then we'll see. Now they do have a lot of holes still, besides their quarterback issue. Derrick Henry, unfortunately, another player that I absolutely love, is you can see his age starting to creep in a little bit. He is just not as explosive as he once was. So there is other holes in this offense besides Will Levis. But with all that being said, I think that he can definitely be that franchise quarterback. He has all the intangibles. He is athletic. He's a big body. He's not afraid to get hit. Everything that you do want in a quarterback, Will Levis has. So, I mean, what do you think? Do you think that he is going to be the guy in Tennessee for 5, 6, 7 years from now?
Well, I definitely don't think they're gonna get a QB this year. If that says anything, I think he is good enough to where he will get that second shot next year as the starter, and I think that's gonna be his big make or break, is if he can do good with a full season under his belt as the full starter. If he does poorly, I think they look for a QB in free agency or the draft next year. If he does great, then great. He's the guy. He's the guy for them. Personally, from what I have seen from him, like you said, he has a couple things that he needs to work on, but if he can fix those things, then I think he'll be just fine.
Yeah.
Now,
that's.
I'm
sorry.
No, you're fine. I don't know what his ceiling is, mainly because the guys that he was drafted with are just so good. That being C.J. Stroud and AR, even though we haven't seen much of AR, just from what we've seen from AR in his 3 games that he's played this year, has already just been phenomenal. Which I can't wait for him to be back next year because he's going to be great.
Right.
But, yeah, so as far as his ceiling goes, because of the people that were drafted with him and the people that are already obviously ahead of him, I don't know how far he can get up on that list as far as QBs go, but I think he can definitely be a franchise guy for the Titans, depending on how he does. And with a weapon like D-Hop, if they can maybe get another solid wide receiver 2 for him, just to kind of get the ball to someone else other than D-Hop consistently, then I think he'll just be just fine. But they all like the Patriots though. The Titans have a lot of pieces that they need to fill. They're just not as far off as the Patriots are.
Yeah. And at this point, we see it with so many teams now. With this late in the season, that are just kind of, we know who's going to make that playoff push or who's going to attempt to make that playoff push, and then who is already starting to look at next year and this upcoming offseason. And Tennessee, from everything that I've seen, just watching them, they don't have any plans to make a really late push for the playoffs, which, I mean, with the way things are shaping up in the playoffs, they easily could still make it, technically. I mean, I saw something earlier today that it said the Panthers mathematically could still make the playoffs. They could, if they went out, and I guess if everybody else in their division loses out, the Panthers could still make the playoffs. So the Titans are far from out of it if they do want to take the route as far as making the playoffs and just giving their fans something to be hopeful for. But to me, it seems like they're wrapping everything up for the year and just kind of letting the boys go out and play for the next 4 or 5 weeks, however much more we got left.
Yeah. Yeah. And wait, you're talking about the Panthers or the Titans?
Just in general, I said that the Panthers have a. I saw something that the Panthers still have a shot to make the playoffs technically if they win out and everybody else loses out. Yeah, no, it's actually crazy. That mathematically they could still make the playoffs, just because their division's not very good.
Mm.
But just I was saying you could tell what teams are looking on to next season, and I think Tennessee is one of those teams that are just ready to get to the offseason.
It's really funny with the Panthers because I feel like most people would probably be giving the top pick in the draft or the pick number 1 in the draft if it's a QB, or even if it was a top like 5 pick if it was a QB. I feel like they'd be giving them a lot more shit than Bryce Young has gotten this year. But I think people actually understand in this one situation how shit of a situation that he was put into being drafted to the Carolina Panthers. Like Bryce Young, objectively, in my opinion, is a good, cute quarterback. I think he can be a great quarterback, but the situation he was put into is probably one of the worst situations that a QB has ever been put into, except for every single quarterback drafted to the Browns circa like 3 years ago. But the Panthers are just a hellhole. Like I don't think anybody expected him to go there and immediately turn that team around. Now, one win that might catch people off guard to the point where it's like, ooh, I don't know about that. But also at the same time, statistically, he's really not having that bad of a season. Like he's having an okay season for what he can do. Yeah. He doesn't have great targets. His O-line's horrible. He's getting sacked like 10 times a game. It's rough. But again, I think a lot of people understand the situation he was put into, and I think a lot of people are hoping that they can build around him to the point where he can become a good quarterback, because I see the flashes in him. So I can see Bryce Young becoming a good quarterback, but they just need to help him out a little bit.
I mean, if you look at their schedule, they almost beat Tennessee this past week. They got beat pretty bad by the Panthers, but I mean, barely lost to Chicago. They beat Texans, which I mean, he beat the head-on-head matchup against CJ Stroud. He won. He took the Vikings to the wire, took Seattle to the wire, and also New Orleans. So I mean, those are 4 games that came down to the final few minutes that the Panthers could have won, and that is with the absolute disaster they just have on their team. I mean, I think that what Bryce Young has done is, with what he's given, is a phenomenal job, a great job. I mean, Adam Thielen is the best offensive target on that team. If I would have said that Adam Thielen was gonna be one of the top 15 receiver going into this season, the entire world would have thought I was insane. What Adam Thielen has done what Bryce Young has done with Adam Thielen is great.
Have you seen the video of I think it's Jonathan Mingo, the Panthers rookie wide receiver? Have you seen the video of the ball getting thrown to him inbounds? Like the ball's like 10 yards inbounds, but he jumps and lunges his body out of bounds while trying to catch the ball inbounds. Like it's the most ridiculous video of all time.
No, I have not seen it.
Basically, in the video, it looks like he's intentionally trying to not catch the ball. Like, quite literally, it looks like he's not trying. He he purposely jumps out of bounds, past the ball, and then reaches backwards to try to catch the ball that he just overran. It's the most ridiculous video of all time.
Yeah,
but
it's such a.
I feel like it. I feel like it really wraps up what that team has going on right now.
Yeah, I mean, now what am I saying that Bryce Young is better than CJ Stroud? No, No, not even close. What C.J. Stroud has done is probably the greatest rookie performance we've ever seen, maybe. But Bryce Young, like you said, what he has given, I think he's done a great job. I think that he has done a phenomenal job. And it like you said with the Patriots, it starts with your quarterback as far as rebuilding. It's not gonna be something that you're gonna become a playoff team over one season. It's gonna take time. It's gonna have to build from the draft.
Yeah.
The draft is gonna result into a few wins, maybe then get some free agency pools. That's how you're gonna rebuild this team. And for the Panthers, you would just hope that Bryce Young is patient enough to stay with them with all the lows and not want to win almost. I mean, I know he wants to win, but if he's not getting those wins, to still stay calm, stay composed, still want to be a part of the organization instead of what we see a lot of people nowadays, as soon as the team starts losing, that they just jump ship to wherever they can win a championship at. So, it's another just slow rebuild for the Panthers. But there is some bright spots at the same time.
Yeah. All right. We mentioned his name already, Parker, in the most recent conversation. C.J. Stroud, he can't manage to find a win this past weekend, loses 24-21 against the Jaguars in a very close game, a very good game, a game that I watched, and it came down to the wire. The Texans had a chance to kick a game-winning or game-tying field goal. However, it was from about 50 yards out, or maybe even 60, and it hit the crossbar and bounced off, so it wasn't good. But it was a great game to watch. It was very awesome. And at the same time, C.J. Stroud and Trevor Lawrence both had great games. And to our point of C.J. Stroud specifically, 304 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and then 1 rushing touchdown as well to add on to it. So, a very good game by C.J. Stroud yet again. And Trevor Lawrence. It's really nice to see an elite performance by Trevor Lawrence this season too, because I don't think he's really had a performance like that yet this season. And personally, I like Trevor Lawrence. I think he's a good quarterback, and I think he's a very good fit on the Jaguars. And I think their scheme and everything fits very well with him. I just think he still hasn't fully figured out the kinks in his game yet, but I think he's very close, like very close. The only thing with Trevor Lawrence that seems to happen is that at the beginning of the season, he kind of like gets these kinks and these mess ups in his game. For the past, this is his junior year, right?
Junior year. This is junior
yeah. Okay.
year.
So for the past 2 off seasons, it seems like he's come back at the beginning of the year with the same kinks and mess ups in his game that he had the past year. And then towards the end of the season, he figures it out and starts having elite performances. We saw it last year. At the end of last year, he was putting on elite performance after elite performance. So,
right.
So I really like Trevor Lawrence. So it's nice to see him having that type of performance. I just wish that he could do it more consistently, especially with the weapons he has. He has some very good weapons down there.
And I think to the weapons point, that is something that is going to help them continuously. I think they're finally starting to figure out that Trevor Lawrence, Calvin Ridley connection. I mean, the last few games Calvin Ridley has played in, he has been absolutely phenomenal. He has been great. A touchdown machine, really. So I think that they are just finally starting to figure out how to use Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram all together and use it as one instead of constantly going to the same target over and over and over again, even if they're not open. And then obviously Travis Etienne is just a beast. He's a monster. He's the next running back up, in my opinion. He's going to take over the league for a few more years. But I think that their offense finally, which they did show some struggles earlier this season, like you said, but they are finally figuring everything out, and they just look like a well-oiled machine. I mean, the Jacksonville's good, man. They're really good. We could see a potential playoff, like a deep playoff push for them. Obviously, they're going to make the playoffs, but a deep playoff push, like AFC Championship bound, potentially, depending on how they play and come playoff time.
Yeah, it's really weird seeing them being 8-3 because in our lifetime, in our lifetime, so many of these teams that are at the top right now have been so bad. The Jaguars being one of them. The Jaguars have never been this good except for once in 2016. So it's very weird seeing them being 8-3 and near the top of the AFC. But hey, you also love to see it because these teams have been so historically bad in our lifetime that it's kind of a feel good moment to see them all winning right now.
Oh yeah, I mean, you see a lot of the times players try to rebuild in a way that it doesn't make them tank necessarily. They don't try they do tank to an extent. They try to get a high draft pick to an extent, but not necessarily like full on just Cleveland Brown type of tank. And you see, just to keep the fans entertained, well, then you have teams like Detroit and Jacksonville that did do the full on tank suck year after year after year, and it's finally paying off, like you said. Like it's finally it's time to finally see what they can do, and just to see. You look at the standings and you see that the Jacksonville's leading a division and you see Detroit's leading a division on the other side. And it's just like, wow, I would have never thought in a million years would I ever think these two teams would be leading their respective divisions.
Right. Which the 3-year turnaround for Trevor Lawrence's time there, by the way, has been crazy. When he first came into the league, Urban Meyer was his head coach. I think they only won 1 or 2 games in his rookie year. Horrible season. The sophomore season, they do a little better, not 8-3 better, but they do a little better. They make the playoffs. They have an incredible comeback against who was it?
The Chargers.
Against the Chargers. Incredible comeback against the Chargers in the playoffs. Lose the second round. And then this year, they're one of the top AFC teams, and we could see a deep playoff push from them. So the turnaround in 3 years for Trevor Lawrence and that team has been incredible.
Yeah, and it does make you think to an extent. I mean, just because I have read so much about Urban Meyers over the past month now, I wonder if it was Urban Meyer, like his play style, that was preventing Trevor Lawrence to be as good as he possibly could be, like we're seeing this year. And now that that 1 year that Lawrence was under Myers, he struggled. The whole team struggled. Do you think that the coaching change, which I can't think of their coach's name off the top of my head right now. Yeah, Doug Peterson. Do you think that the change from Urban Meyers to Doug Peterson had that crazy of an effect that makes them go from still a bottom feeder to one of the best teams in all of the NFL?
I think it does. I think it definitely does because Doug Peterson's a really good coach, in my opinion. I think he's a great coach. He was a good coach for the Eagles before he I think he actually got fired from the Eagles, but he was a good coach for them for years. And then we look at Urban Meyer, and at least in my opinion, he's just one of those coaches that fits better in college. I think it's the same way for Jim Harbaugh.
For Jim is in Michigan. John.
Yeah, I feel like it's been the same way for Jim Harbaugh. We saw him go to the 49ers. He did make a Super Bowl, but other than that Super Bowl year, he was kind of mid as a coach. His 49ers teams were all kind of mid. So I think it's just one of those times where even Nick Saban, a lot of people might not know, he had a coaching stint in the NFL, and it wasn't great. So I think he's just one of those coaches that just fits better in college than in the NFL because we've said it before, but it's just two totally different games. You know, there's a speed difference, there's a size difference, and there's a play style difference. So, you know, the rules change, and it's a lot to take in. And, yeah.
No, yeah, I don't know if it was on the podcast, Josh, but we talked about how these coaches, these great Hall of Fame caliber college coaches, go to the NFL. They try their hand in the NFL because at the end of the day, you can make more money in the NFL. That just absolutely fall flat on their face. I mean, Urban Meyers is the most recent example. I even said, like, John Calipari, whenever he tried to go in basketball, he tried to coach the Celtics, I believe. I believe it was the Celtics. He tried to coach the Celtics, which is a historic franchise, and they only know success, and he just couldn't make it happen. He had very terrible years in Boston, which ultimately decided to make him go back down to college. It's just not always. Now, sometimes you do get that where your play style in college does work and translate to the NFL or to the next level, the professional level. But I feel like more times than not, the college play style, the college strategy,
It's very
calling,
it's very
everything like
rare.
that,
It's very rare. I can't even think of a coach like off the top of my head that's made that transition
that's
successfully.
done it good. And it's just you gotta you. I think the big reason why it doesn't work so much is because you genuinely are playing with grown men. You are playing with men that are just so much faster than these guys in college, so much stronger, more fit, just more agile. Everything about these defenses or offenses are just so much more superior to the college team. And people tend to say, like, this Georgia team this year could beat this Panthers team. No, they can. They can. And I will die on that hill. The Panthers would demolish Georgia like no one's business. And it's simply because it is a game of men, or it's men playing against boys.
Yeah, I mean, college, you have 18, 19-year-olds starting. So, I mean, that's just an explanation right there. Like,
Right.
you're going to put you're going to put a 18, 19-year-old starting quarterback if somebody out there in D1 football has a freshman starter against an NFL defense.
He's gonna get ate up. He's gonna get ate up alive.
I wouldn't take that bet literally anytime.
But you seriously, you can look it up. There's multiple people saying that Georgia can beat this Panthers team. This
No,
Carolina Panthers team.
I believe it. I know there's people that say that because there's people that say that about Kentucky too, in basketball.
It's crazy.
I mean, like in which I have a feeling that basketball might be a little different because, I know there was a time period where a lot of people were saying that the 2014 Kentucky Wildcats basketball team could have beaten the Charlotte Bobcats at the time, which honestly could have maybe been true because the Charlotte Bobcats were super embarrassing as a franchise. But, yeah, it just there's a difference between the pro level and college for sure.
Yeah, and then as far as for basketball, I mean, all it takes is just one team getting hot at the right time. I mean, it's definitely more likely for the best college team to beat the worst NBA team. Now, I think if they play 10 times, that college team maybe only wins once. But I think it's definitely more likely than if Georgia played the Panthers. They played 10 times. The Panthers win 10 out of 10. And I will die on that hill.
All right. There's one more game from this past week that I want to talk about, and that is the overtime thriller that we had. The Eagles take down the Bills 37-34 in overtime, and the Bills somehow found a way to give that game away because they were winning for the entire game. They were, some would maybe say, dominating for most of that game. And then the fourth quarter comes, and the Eagles make a 14-point comeback to put it into overtime. And then they wind up winning. So, I don't know how you do that, but Josh Allen apparently can't win in overtime. He's never won in overtime. So, I don't know.
Here's the thing, man. This Eagles team they have separated themselves. I know we talked about Baltimore a few weeks back, saying Baltimore was the best team in the NFL. I think I might have even said the Kansas City Chiefs were the best team in the NFL. I know we said the 49ers at one point were. The Eagles have separated themselves as the best team in the NFL. I mean, last year, they were either undefeated all regular season or only one loss, something like that. And everybody wanted to right away say that it was because their schedule was so incredibly easy. They said that their schedule, they had the easiest conference, our easiest division. They got escaped with all below 500 teams, whatever. This year comes along. Their schedule is insane. I didn't realize it, but literally the NFL was preying on their downfall. How difficult this schedule is. I mean, not only have you already played teams like the Dolphins or the Rams, the Eagles, I believe. Yeah, the Eagles. No, I'm sorry, the Vikings. The Vikings. But then you go on this stretch where you play the Cowboys, the Chiefs, the Bills, the 49ers next week, and then the Cowboys once again. That's one of the hardest, what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 week stretches I've ever seen. For straight out. 5 weeks, 5 week stretch I've ever seen. And they just
if they win these next two, they gotta win the last four, right? Because those last four are just non-comparable to the Cowboys and 49ers.
No, yeah. You finished the season against the Giants twice and the Cardinals. So, 6 combined wins, I believe. I think the Giants have 4 wins. 6-5 combined wins. You got to. The Seattle, it's at Seattle. It could be a tough game, but I don't think so. And now these games that they're beating, the Cowboys, the Chiefs, and the Bills, they weren't dominating performances by any means. But it's still the fact that they continuously, week in and week out, are finding ways to win. They went into Arrowhead, and they found a way to win. They were down the whole game to Buffalo. They found a way to win. The Cowboys, with their electric offense, they found a way to shut it down and held them to only 23 points that no other team really has been able to find out how to do this year. This Eagles team is insane. Jalen Hurts, as much as I do want CJ Stroud to win MVP because I think it would be awesome, Jalen Hurts is running away with the MVP as well. He just is really good at the sport of football.
Yeah, I think he's had back-to-back games now with, what's the stat I'm trying to think of? I think he's had back-to-back games with 5+ touchdowns, whether it's like passing or running. He had five. He had 5 this most recent week, 3 passing, 2 running. Dropped 35 in fantasy, by the way. So that's nice.
He's good, man.
He's
good.
Very good. Very good.
I still can't get over just the fact of how tough their schedule is. I don't know who okayed that with the NFL to let them go on a 5-week stretch of arguably the 5 best teams in football, minus Baltimore maybe. I know the Bills technically aren't as good as they have been in the past, but
the Bills have been so disappointing this year.
And then on top of that, they before this stretch, they played the Dolphins, who some might say is the best offense in football. You played the Vikings, which obviously they've had their fair share of injuries, but the Vikings is a elite team once again. The Rams in LA, just this schedule. New York, at the beginning of the year, New York was supposed to be a Super Bowl contending, or the New York Jets, New York Jets were supposed to be a Super Bowl contending team. Another team that got plagued with injuries. This schedule is unreal, legitimately. And I didn't realize it until after I looked it up after the Bills game, because I was like, didn't they just play the Chiefs? They had to play the Chiefs and the Bills back-to-back weeks. And, I found out how freaking hard their schedule is, and it's insane.
Yeah, they have a rough schedule, but they are finding ways to win, and they're sitting pretty at 10-1 at the top of the NFC.
Yeah, that's another thing. I like all of it. Through all of it, they just have the one loss, which was to the Jets. Yeah, the Jets, which is pretty crazy to think that out of all these teams, it's the Jets.
They played terrible that game. They played terrible that game.
Yeah, far and away, the Eagles are the best team in the NFL. Sorry, Baltimore fans. I know you guys want to have that crown, but it's uncomparable right now.
Yeah, that's just the Eagles are just so good as a team. Although I fucking hate their head coach, but that's a whole different conversation.
And which you can see it in my room, they have some of the best the Kelly Green jerseys might be the best jerseys in football.
Beautiful.
I mean, I'm not a fan of the color green, but you got me changing the colors of my LED lights to match the Kelly Greens. I mean, those Kelly Greens are beautiful, especially on field. I love it. I mean, the Eagles are flying. Fly, Eagles, fly, I guess.
I just want to rephrase it, by the way, because I don't actually hate Nick Sirianni. It's just some of the things he does and says. It's really annoying. But
why so?
He fits the Philly mentality, I guess.
Why do you hate him so much?
I don't hate him, but I can get annoyed by him very easily, just because like he's just very like brash and like very over the top as far as like he shit talks fans too, like players do. Like he'll shit talk fans, or like he'll shit talk other players on the other team, or like he'll say some like outlandish stuff at press conferences.
Yeah.
So he just does things that are kind of annoying sometimes, but he's a great coach. So I mean, it's working obviously, and what he's doing for that team is great. So he's a great football mind. He's a great coach, but some things he does I find annoying. That's all it is.
Unfortunately, I mean, you got a team like Philadelphia that is just winning and winning and winning. He's not going to stop doing the arrogant.
Oh yeah, no, he has every right to do it
until somebody beats him.
Yeah.
Until somebody can figure out how to do it, but nobody has besides I guess New York. To piggyback off of bad coaches, I actually just watched a video last night about the situation going on in Las Vegas. I didn't realize, now I don't know if you know too much about this, how corrupt Las Vegas, just their organization is. And
it's horrible.
To the face of all of it is Josh Daniels or McDaniels. What they did to Derek Carr over his stint in Las Vegas or Oakland, whatever you want to say, whatever you want to call it, is one of the most disgusting jobs I've ever seen. They basically said that like the whole organization said that Derek Carr was the answer. He is going to lead them. They're not going to go anywhere else besides Las Vegas, or they're not going to go any other directions besides Derek Carr. And then as soon as his contract was up, they completely jumped ship. They said, you were never the answer. You were not going to be the answer. You're going to have to go find a new job somewhere. And ever since then, because it was a pretty long video about it, just kind of talking about it. And Derek Carr, like, he loved the team. I mean, him and Devontae Adams were college teammates, receiver quarterback duo in college at Fresno. And they got him. He got Devontae Adams there, and Devontae Adams was so content with Derek Carr being his quarterback. They just did him so dirty. And ever since I've watched that video, I can't look at the Raiders the same. And just the whole, I hate to say it, but I'm rooting against Las Vegas. Like, that is a team that I am rooting against to lose, because how much they kind of just destroyed and derailed Derek Carr's career because they were promising things that they were just lying to him about behind closed doors. I mean, Las Vegas is, I hope, forever in a train wreck, in my opinion.
That franchise has always been so dirty. Like, always. It's always been such a dirty franchise. Like, historically, they've been through so many allegations, so many different, like, controversies. Just, it's always been such a sketchy organization, and one to easily hate. Like, it's a very easy organization to hate. And to be honest, even players on the team historically have hated being there. So it's just, if that says a lot on its own, if your players hate being there and they're public about it while they're still on the team, that says a lot, in my opinion. And by the way, as far as Derek Carr goes, the guy that they went and replaced him with, they're not even playing right now. So they just wasted money to go get Derek Carr's replacement. who's not even his replacement.
And like I said, Derek Carr was so happy to be there. Now, obviously, things started to go bad. Like, they started to lose games. They weren't performing how they should have, especially with a weapon like Devontae Adams. But I mean, he was so happy being there. He was so content there, and they just did him. He did him so dirty, and it was just like Derek Carr was like, we have some problems we got to talk about, and then they would go to the coach and be like, hey, did Derek Carr talk to you about so and so? And they're like, and the coach would literally say in press conferences, he was like, no, like we did. I mean, I did talk to Derek Carr, but he said he didn't have any problem with me or anything like that. When clearly Derek Carr said multiple times that Daniels or McDaniels was the problem there. And then this past year, the players voted on the worst coach in the NFL, and it was hands down him, Josh McDaniels or Daniels. I do not know which one it is. They flat up said he's the hardest coach to talk to. He's the hardest one to convince to run anything, and just a really shitty situation over there in Las Vegas that I don't like them at all anymore.
Yeah. Okay, Parker. There's one thing on my mind left that I really want to talk about. But as far as this, I don't think I have anything else I want to talk about. But it's a big thing. And that is the New York Jets today, as of today, have opened the 21-day practice window for Aaron Rodgers.
Crazy, man.
Week 1 of the NFL season, very first play of the game, tore his Achilles, which typically is a season-ending injury, as in season-ending, as in you don't come back, regular season or playoffs. You don't come back. And he is about to come back before the regular season is even over. That is wild.
What the craziest thing could... Just imagine this. Just imagine. He comes back, like, let's say, like, the last week or second to last week of the season. The Jets somehow manage to sneak into a playoff spot, and then Aaron Rodgers leads them to a Super Bowl. Just imagine how crazy that would be. I don't even know what and how it's even possible. I don't know what type of psychedelics Aaron Rodgers is on to have him have super regen.
Everything.
But especially at the age, man, the age, how old he is, and he's still doing it this way. I mean, you might, which is still a stretch, you might see it from a 25-year-old. But, I mean, how old is Aaron Rodgers? 35? Or is he older than that?
He is... Hold on, I can find it real quick. Well, I thought I could. He's like not on their player list.
Hang on, I got you.
He's 39.
Is he 39?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, like, I mean, I said 35, so I was off by 4 years. I mean, the dude is 39 years old. He's almost he's just a little bit younger than my own father, and he is still it took him like 80 days to come back from this type of injury. That's unreal. Insane. Absolutely absurd. I don't know. I don't know I don't even know what to say about it.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I mean, I feel he's definitely doing it. I think just as like a big, like, you know, gesture to like the whole medical field, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, because, you know, he's pretty public about like what he's against and everything as far as like in regards to that stuff. Not to get too deep into it, because, you know, it is what it is. But I think that's kind of why he's doing it. Like, like, in all honesty, like what we could see is like him come out on the field, play one play just to prove a point, and then literally just sit out for the rest of the game. Like, we could genuinely see him do that, just because I think Aaron Rodgers could potentially be that petty. But it would be funny as hell, too, if he were to do that.
I love it. I love it, man. I think, I mean, like you said, he has been very vocal on what he does and does not like. But to go out there after him multiple times saying that he does try some type of psychedelic or some type of a quote-unquote drug, and he enjoys it. He thinks there's a lot of good benefits from it, and continuously being in tip-top shape and being able to return to practice, even if he really is nowhere close to being ready. And like you said, he could be just that petty to be putting on a show saying, yeah, he's back at practice, blah, 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 blah. But still, just the fact that he is walking is insane. And I mean, he was walking 2-3 weeks ago, you know, like, so minus 21 days, I'm sorry, can't math, 21 days, he was even walking. Now he's getting back to practice is just a insane accomplishment. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why. It's a pretty crazy thing to think about, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I just, it makes me wonder if he does return and he makes his comeback, which it's looking like he will. What does that do for the rest of the league and other players in the league who suffer the same injury or an injury of the same sort, knowing that there's a chance that they can come back?
I know you want Kirk Cousins back this year, but he's gone. He's not coming back this year. I know you want him. I know you do, but he is not coming back.
Listen, man, I still have faith in Josh Dobbs, but this last game was just hard. It was hard to watch.
But no, I know what you mean. I mean, we've seen all-time greats go down. Kobe Bryant's the first one I think about when you think of tearing Achilles or just popping Achilles. And we saw with Kobe Bryant that was kind of, like, he was battling injuries beforehand a little bit, but that was the main one that kind of just didn't end his career right there and then, but you could see that prime Kobe Bryant was officially over. He is not the same player that he used to be. And he was fairly old. I don't think he was 39. He definitely wasn't 39 years old when he tore his Achilles. But to see a player of 39 years old who is an all-time great, who, I mean, he could retire right now. He has nothing more to prove, in my opinion. He doesn't need to prove anymore. He's still a first-ballot Hall of Famer. To come back from some type of injury as big as Achilles and just be able to play in the same year that he's done it, it means a lot. I think it means a lot for not only just other players suffering that same injury, but just sports medicine as a whole, how much it has evolved, and how if you do treat it right, you do everything the doctors tell you to do, that you can come back from those type of injuries, and you can do it in a timely manner as well. I mean, this could mean so much. I mean, now there is some injuries that you definitely are not going to come back in 80 days from, but
like Nick Chubb's injury.
Correct. Yeah, Nick Chubb's is not coming back. But just a lot more injuries that we might see players return from a lot quicker than we initially would think. Potentially hamstring injuries. You know, that's something that you pull a hamstring, you would think that you'd only be out 2 weeks, but you end up being out 2 months. So that could be something that we could see evolving here in the next few years, just not being out as long. So I think it just means a lot for sports medicine as a whole and how far it's came. Is this Aaron Rodgers' whole situation?
Yeah. Okay, well, do you have anything else you want to bring up or talk about?
Yeah, which, I mean, we did kind of touch on it a little bit just a second ago.
Mm-hmm.
But the Eagles play the 49ers this upcoming week. Do you think the Eagles, this is at Philadelphia as well, do you think the Eagles run away with this one?
I don't think they run away with it. I think they could walk away with it.
Okay, do you think the Eagles run away with this game?
I think they do. the 49ers won their Thanksgiving game this past weekend. However, it wasn't necessarily because of their quarterback. And I only say that because if you look at the Eagles, they could win games because of Jalen Hurts. Because Jalen Hurts is that type of player. I don't think Brock Purdy is that type of player. When you look at defense, though, I think San Francisco's defense is, or at least should be, far and away better than the Eagles' defense. I think ever since getting Chase Young, that 49ers defense has become better than it already was, which is crazy because they were already a top defense in the league. But I think at the end of the day, I think the Eagles' offense compared to the 49ers' offense and what they might be able to do or what their capabilities are, I think the Eagles are going to be able to find a way to win way more than I can find a way inside of my head to think that the 49ers could take it. Although I don't think it's going to be that big of a blowout or anything. I think it'll be relatively close. I don't see the 49ers going into Philly either and being able to take that game very easily because that's a big game. It's a big game, and Eagles fans are going to show out, and they always do. They always do. But it's going to be loud. It's going to be distracting, and
it's going to be cold too.
Yeah, and it's going to be cold. And, the Niners, I'm sure they're looking for revenge from that NFC Championship game, but at the same time, the Eagles look better this year than they did last year. So, it's honestly a toss-up, but I lean more towards the Eagles.
Yeah. I see this game being a 2, maybe a 3-score win for the Eagles. And again, I could say it on repeat over and over and over again, Josh. This Eagles team is good. They are so much better than the next best team in the NFL. Whether it is Kansas City, whether it is Baltimore, whether it is San Francisco, the Eagles look like the best team, and it's not really a close at all. I think that offensively, defensively, special teams, coaching-wise, there's not a team that matches them all together. Put everything together, I should say.
Yeah, I agree. I fully agree.
But yeah, other than that, as far as looking into next week, this upcoming week, week 13, there is not too many crazy games. The Rams and Browns could be good. Bengals, Jaguars, another good game. On Monday night too, which Monday night finally got another good game. It's more or less just continuously building that playoff picture. Seeing teams that are going to try to make that late push to squeeze into one of those last few playoff spots, and then also see teams kind of seal everything up on their division side. And I think it's just more or less just, you got to, like we said in college a few weeks back, you got to fight. This is one of these weeks where you just got to win. You got to handle business. You got to get to the next week.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, so that you don't got anything else? Nothing more? Okay. All right, well, that's going to be all from us here at the Take His Whistle podcast. We appreciate you guys for listening and watching now that we've got face cam going on every episode. For the most part, there should be face cam from now on, by the way. I don't think we ever really made an announcement about that, but there will be webcam now from now on every episode. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. It seems like you guys did from the views on the other one, but, we'll see how this one goes. But thank you guys for watching. We appreciate the support. And, Parker, do you have anything?
Yes. Now, I don't know if you follow the Instagram, but if you do follow the Instagram, you should see that we do have a TikTok page up and running. It's just Take His Whistle. I don't believe there's no podcast next to it, so it's just Take His Whistle. You should be able to find it fairly easy and everything. So give the TikTok a page, or give the TikTok a follow. We'd greatly appreciate it. Obviously, I was fighting for my life in these comments on one of our first TikToks. people were not happy with me with my Mark Stoops take. But I would love to respond and have conversations with anybody out there that wants to talk sports. I'm always down for that stuff. So give it a follow. And yeah, that's all I got.
All right, we appreciate you guys. We'll see you guys tomorrow for the college football episode. See you guys.
Peace.